Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of SpyCam. My name is Marty, otherwise known as Laser Chicken, one of the co-founders of Splyce.gg. Thanks for joining us again this week, where we take you with an inside look at the esports industry to learn a little bit more about what makes up some of the great tournaments and events that you see each week, watching some of the great content we have listed on Splyce.gg. Joining with me today is Chris Chan, one of the co-founders of Good Game Con. Chris, thanks for being here.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
So Chris is based out of Toronto and runs the Good Game Con, as I mentioned. Chris, why don't you tell a little bit about your story of how you got to be running something as large and large scale? It's what Good Game Con is going to be this year.
Okay, so I'm going to go through my entire story. Forgive me if this is a bit long, but I feel that it's relevant to a lot of the viewers out there who want to get into esports. I may go on to certain parts where it sounds a little irrelevant to esports, but it all connects in some way. And I feel that everyone kind of goes through this. Like, no one ever says, I want to do X, they do X, they're great at it. And
Never.
that's kind of, yeah.
You're my sixth guest, and yet have yet to have anybody that goes, I joined esports to do this thing, and then they did it, right?
Exactly. I didn't actually discover esports until very recently. So I'll start at the very beginning when I was a kid. So I was into gaming a lot. I played a lot of CS 1.6, was into the MMOs, was extremely addicted to video games to the point where it was becoming a huge problem. I almost dropped out of university because of it. But I was able to, I guess, soldier on through, got my accounting degree, joined the toy industry. Worked there for 10 years, and I learned how to sell toys. So I was in a lot of meetings with a lot of the big retailers. I learned how to merchandise, how to develop brands. So if a retailer wanted to develop a brand for, I don't know, toy cars or dolls, I would help them develop that. I would then also help them source it. So I would go to China 3-4 times a year, get the costing of it. Again, develop that whole thing from start to finish, manage sales, inventory, ship dates, all that kind of stuff. And I did that for a really long time, 10 years, as I said, and I felt like there was something missing. I liked what I did. I made really good money. Everyone told me to go through school, all that kind of stuff, but something was really missing. So I decided to take a year off. I told myself I'm just going to trust that I would gravitate towards a hobby or something, and maybe turn that into a living. So I did a lot of snowboarding, golf. I love hockey. I traveled a lot. I backpacked.
Did you think you were going to become a professional snowboarder or golfer? Was that part of the plan?
So that see that's the thing. There's a difference between like and love. They're worlds
Right,
apart.
right.
I like golf. I love going out there. I love going down the hill. But for me, I asked myself, do I want to become, I don't know, an instructor one day?
Right.
No, probably not. Don't love it that much.
To teach and to do are two very different things, right?
Exactly. They're very, very different things. So, and I actually went through a large rut. So this is the one thing that people don't usually tell you about their stories, is their struggles.
Yep.
I struggled a lot. So when I took that year off, I thought it'd be a great experience, and it was. But there were times where I just didn't know what I was doing. When you have no sense of purpose, it really gets to you. And people would say, oh, you're at home and doing whatever it is you want to do. But it bothered me a lot. And it got to the point where I started drinking a lot. And I was close to giving up and almost resigned to the fact that I have to go back to the toy industry when I decided to revisit gaming, because I was really addicted when I was in high school and university. And I bought a ticket to PAX East in Boston.
Which year was that?
Oh boy, this is 2013.
Ah, I was there. I was,
Were you there? Okay.
yeah, it was the same one I went to, I believe. It could have been 2014, but I'm pretty sure it was 2013.
Yeah, it was the time when they announced Hearthstone. Funny enough, I'll talk about that later. But
Cool.
they announced Blizzard had this big announcement. I was like, oh, a card game, like who cares? So I went to PAX East, discovered a very passionate crowd of players who played League of Legends. And they would just come up to me randomly and ask me who my favorite champion was. I told them I didn't even play this game, but I was so taken by their passion and their love for the game. So as soon as I got home, installed the game and started playing it nonstop. I discovered the LCS, started watching it a lot, and just started getting really into the teams and the players, started yelling at my monitor, all that kind of stuff. So I was a huge fan. And I realized that there must be other people out there who are doing the same thing by
Of
themselves.
course.
Yeah. And I connected back to PAX and realized that there was nothing here in Toronto. So I put up a feeler out there on Facebook and asked, hey, who kind of wants to get together and watch the game? And the next day we had 500 people that said they wanted to. So I went out and rented the theater, sold tickets online, and we sold out in, it must have been like 30 minutes. And
Damn.
yeah,
That's like the dream, right?
Yeah, so I was like, holy crap, like we have something here. So I expanded that event. I've been doing this for about 2.5 years now. We filled theaters of 1,200 people. I then started doing events in Montreal as well, and in Hong Kong. The Montreal one sold out, did very well. So this is where the merchandising side kicks in a little bit. I worked out deals with TSM and Cloud9 to sell their merchandise at my events because I know we don't get much stuff here. And I know it's a pain to ship stuff to Canada because our duties and customs are crazy.
Oh, yeah.
So I started setting up, I guess, a retail store at or these pop-up shops at my events, and they would just sell right out. And I took, again, the knowledge I learned from being in the toy business to that. And
I think people miss out on how much people just want to buy merch. I'd have to go off on a side tangent here, but I went over to Super Smash Con last year in DC, and Super Smash Con was very first time event. It was like a medium-sized event, and their T-shirt areas, which they weren't Cloud9 or TSM, they were literally Super Smash Con things, but they were nice stuff. They were sold out by the first day end, and I don't mean a little amount. They sold out. Everyone was wearing them, like massive amounts. People want gear, you know.
Yeah, they love this stuff, and the same thing if you go to PAX or BlizzCon or TwitchCon. That's like like. A big reason why people go is to spend money. And it surprises me because I was thinking, okay, my demographic is like 13 to 24. I have these kids come in, like, they must be 10 or 11 years old. They're like, I want this, I want this, I want that, I want that. And I'm like, okay, it's like $200. And they just start pulling out like hundreds. I'm like, where do they get this money from, right? But
wow.
Yeah, it's their parents, they, or maybe they work part-time or something, or from their chores. I'm not sure, but merch is a huge thing, and I think that has a lot of room to develop in esports, because I feel like a lot of teams and a lot of developers don't really fully take advantage of that, which is not their fault because they don't come from a merchandising background or retail or anything at all, but that probably will mature as it goes on. So yeah, we've let's see, I hosted these live stream parties. I actually started to bring out pro players. So we had Snoop, Meteor, Scara, Xpecial, Doublelift come out to these events.
Damn, that's like the creme de la creme list right there.
Yeah, and they have a lot of fans here. And the thing is that what people don't realize is people on the East Coast don't get to see a lot of these pro players or pro guests. They're mostly in the West Coast traveling a lot, and they don't come here, especially in Canada. So I realized that there was an opportunity there. I then met up with a lot of organizers from other games. So I knew the guy named Joe who ran Smash for Toronto. I knew the guy who ran FGC for Toronto, which is Street Fighter and Tekken, and other community organizers. And we got together and we're brainstorming. Hey, like we should be able to work together. Like I run League and Hearthstone, you run these games. Let's get together and pool our events together. And that's the short version of how Good Game Con came to be. And so we have the Capcom Pro Tour. We were just announced as one of the events. And that's the thing, working with these people, I find that when you have someone that specializes in a certain area, like that is such a great skill to have as a person, like to get them involved with you. Like I don't want to learn about FGC. I love FGC. I think it's great. But if you run that side for 15 years, you obviously know your stuff. I will never be as good as them. So that's why it's good to have different people doing different games.
Yep. It's funny how people think I can do it all. What do I need help for, right?
Yeah, exactly. You definitely need help, a lot of help to do big things. And I started getting involved in the Hearthstone community as well. So we're lucky to have some local players such as Kriparian, Disguised Toast, Hot Form. So I got to know all of them. They came out to my fireside gatherings, started doing that. I think I'm doing my 18th Fireside Gathering this weekend. I'm doing the winter preliminaries for Blizzard, which is pretty exciting stuff. And yeah, that's how Good Game Con came to be. And to elaborate even further on what I do, I got talking with Scar when he came out to my event, and we became friends. And this is, I guess, the story relates to creating opportunities and how just getting involved in a certain industry, these opportunities will just pop up, and you have to learn how to, I guess, take action. So he told me that he had trouble growing his brand. His YouTube channel was kind of in the dumps. Nothing was really happening there.
Right.
And he needed some help. So I didn't volunteer right away, but I kind of digested that. And this goes back to Disguised Toast and Preparing, because I knew they were great content creators.
Yeah. They have massive channels, the two of them.
Yeah, huge channels. So I talked to them, and people in general are very helpful. So even if you think of someone like Preparing, who's very big, and Disguised Toast, who's also pretty big, they would just help you. Like, honestly, I just asked them, like, hey, how do I do this? And they were just talking to me for like hours.
Yeah, and
like,
I find that people don't understand that if you just take a second to ask a question, the worst people are going to say is no or not respond to you. Is that really that terrible?
Exactly. So I learned that too growing up, and they were extremely helpful. They showed me what programs to use, taught me how to use it. Before I get that far, actually, I consulted them that part. I made a deck. So this is where my branding experience comes in. Working with different retailers, I know how to create a brand, how to design one. So I used that, pitched the deck to Skara, and he accepted. He said, "Yeah, let's do this. Like, what does he have to lose, right?" So I worked on cleaning up all his social media, started to learn how to video edit, and yeah, the first few videos were like okay, but I slowly learned how to do it. And it started becoming a big hit. So I am a content editor as well, and I help, I guess, players manage their brand. And Scar and I are working on something else now that we'll probably announce in the coming weeks.
Cool.
But yeah, so the journey, I'm still not done yet. I mean, so
the journey is never done, though. This is esports, right? Like so I don't know if you know this, Chris, but I come from theater, where the journey's kind of done, right? Like theater has figured itself out. There are little tiny things that change, but it's been thousands of years. Like they've figured it out. In esports, I can't even figure out what's going on half the day, how much stuff is changing. Like from day to day, stuff changes, not even week to week, right?
Yeah, it changes really quickly, and that's why to the audience that's listening, if you're in an industry that you can't really. If you're in a completely different industry, don't worry about it. Just develop your skill sets, whatever it is you like to do. You can apply it to esports in some way, I guarantee that. And just find out what it is that you want to do. It may not even be esports, right? And that's the thing. Everyone thinks it's great to work in esports, but it's a very risky industry. It's, as you said, it's in its infancy. There's not a lot of money, even though a lot of it's starting to come in now. But it's very risky. It just might not be for you.
Well, I remember when I was in theater, even you get a lot of people that, or the movies, the movies, film and television too, because it's cool and exciting. I want to work in TV. I want to work in the movies, but they don't. They get into it and they go, "Oh, well, I don't actually even know what I want to do in the TV or movies." And I had friends that started as production assistants because that's a way in, and then they wouldn't know what to do beyond that, right? Like they're not like, I want to be a cameraman or I want to be a video editor or whatever. They didn't have any idea, and they eventually fell out of the industry. Like it was not you. I think you're hitting a key point here that it's not the industry you hit first, right? You have to figure out what you want to do and see if it fits in that industry. If you're really passionate about an industry, you can maybe find something just based on that. But like if I wasn't if I was not an entertainment professional, I don't think I would have ended up in esports. I would just still be a fan today, But because I had a skill set that fit here, and Bryce Blum, the esports lawyer, he was my very first week, I think, of doing the show. He kind of said the same thing, where he's like, I learned a bunch just being a lawyer, not working on anything esports related, and it made me better in esports because I just solidified those skills first. I wasn't like esports. And Chris, I don't know if you get the same thing, but I get so many applications of people that are just like, I love esports. I would love to work for you. I'll do anything. And it's like, you have to, it's even if you're telling you'll do for free, you have to bring a value to me. You have to say, here's what I can do for your company, or here's why you should want me to volunteer or get a job, not just I heart esports, right?
Yeah. Yeah, that's a very good point too. I get a lot of those messages, like I'm passionate about it. The first thing I ask them is like, well, how can you help out? Tell me how you can help out with esports.
Yep.
Treat this like a job application. Send me your resume, and I know exactly what you could do. So, and that's the thing. I don't want to put down people who say they're passionate about esports, but you need to do something. You can't just keep saying that. I usually judge people like by what they do at my events and how they help out. So
Yep.
we usually have a lot of volunteers to start. So, and you'd be amazed at how many people don't really do anything. They kind of show up and then they just kind of sit around, don't do anything. And
Let's just
it's a
say I
good,
wouldn't be amazed.
yeah. So it happens. It happens a lot. But the people who say they're passionate about it and do something will get very far in esports. Um, you bring up a good point before that you don't know exactly what you're going to do in esports. You have to master another craft first and mix it in here, and that's why it might be hard for you or for anyone to see how they can get into esports. And it's really easy for me to say, okay, you saw my path. I told you this story.
Yep.
But when you're starting at the beginning, when I was that kid failing school, or when I was in the toy industry, I couldn't. There's no way I would have foresaw all this happening. So if you're panicking right now about how to get into it, don't worry about it. Just be good at whatever it is that you do, and explore different things if you haven't found it yet.
Well, interesting for anybody that hasn't seen previous episodes. We had Thorin on 2 episodes ago, and we
Mhm.
were talking about how do you become a journalist in esports or a commentator or any of those things that he does, because he does so many different things. And one of the points that he just laid on real thick, and I love that he did this because I think it's important, is the number of people that will say, "Oh, I want to be a writer," and he's like, "Don't want to be a writer." Be a writer, like write stuff. If that's what you want to do, stop talking about it and go do it. And how few people actually stop to actually do it and actually say, hey, look, here's what I've actually done, not here's what I want to do. And I mean, the whole idea of my dreams and stuff like that, that's all they are, is dreams until you actually execute on them. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
but
People who take initiative will definitely make it further in esports than those who don't. So
yeah,
that's very good from Thorin actually. And it's the same thing with like video editing. I just got down to, I didn't take any courses on video editing. I just downloaded the program,
yep.
talked to Toast a little bit, did a lot of tutorials, Googled a bunch of tutorials on YouTube, and that's how I learned how to edit video.
What's kind of amazing about you talking about like just learning by doing stuff is we do that all the time at Splyce. I'll reach out to like Jenna or Jonathan or any of the folks in the office and say, I need you to do this thing. Can you just Google it and figure it out? We don't have the time to go find somebody that, like, we need to do this thing in the next 3 days. You're going to have to figure it out. And they do, and they're amazing like that. And it's incredible how efficient they've become at things that they didn't go to school for or they never done before they were here, but because they have the work ethic. And that's a big part of why they're here today, is because those people just bust their ass, all the time. So, I'm going to shift gears a little bit here. So,
Mhm.
so let's talk a little bit about tournament organization. It's a really overwhelming proposition for most people, I would say. I kind of, I guess I've done parallel to you where I put up theater productions, which is not too different. And
Mhm.
I think to the average layman, there isn't even like a where do I start, right? Like how could I follow in the Chris Chan Good Game Con footsteps? I don't even know how to get to a point where I'm getting 1,200 people selling at tickets in an hour or anything like that. So.
Mhm. Start small. Everyone looks at a PAX and any other convention and think, I want 90,000 people or 50,000 people to show up at my event. Um, you never just start off like that. You have to start small, think small. And I'm talking about, I don't care if it's you inviting one friend over to play some games together, or two people or whatever it is, because Fireside Gatherings is a perfect example. I just love Hearthstone. I want to get together people to play this game. All I did was go to an internet cafe and say, who wants to join me? And the first time we did it, we had a few people show up. Same thing with League of Legends when we started running tournaments, and word spreads quickly. People start telling their friends, hey, this happens every month at this
Right.
place, and it just kind of snowballs and grows. So again, like I told the story about how I met Kriparian and Toast, but what I forgot to mention was, it took 10 or a year of Fireside Gatherings before this started becoming something.
Right.
So I did that. The Fireside Gatherings started growing a lot. We're up to our 18th one now. And that's the thing, just start. Like if you're watching this and you don't have an event or any community event in your area, no fireside gathering, just organize one. just put out there on Facebook, say, hey, who wants to get together and do this next Saturday at this place, right? Or my house, whatever it is.
I couldn't echo that more. I think it's fascinating how many people forget like that the Smash scene is a perfect example. So the Smash scene was literally a bunch of dudes who are like, hey, do you want to get together and play some Smash and we'll see who wins? And I liken it. I'm 36. You're obviously a little older than most esports folks as well, obviously from your journey. Like we remember the days of going, hey, I just got the new Mortal Kombat. Do you guys want to come over and we'll take turns playing each other and do a little mini bracket that we'll write down on paper? Or I got the new Madden or the new NBA or whatever it was. And that was like, that's the genesis of esports tournaments organization, right? It's you getting together with 3 friends and having a bracket of 4 people and playing a game. And so I think that the fireside gatherings, interesting you bring them up because I think Blizzard set that up in a way to say, hey, you can do an event too, right? You can just have 10 people. You don't even need computers. People bring not even just tablets, but bring your phone. You got your phone, you're good to go, right? And internet, and then you're good to go. So I think that the just do it. We'll throw Nike a plug today. Is it hey Nike, want to sponsor us? We'll say just do it. Is really the message of the day, right? About tournament organization.
Yeah, and you'll learn along the way on how to do things. Running brackets gets a little more complicated when you have a large amount of people or these small things here and there. But don't worry about it too much. You'll learn on the go. So for example, streaming your tournaments. That was a big lesson for all of us on how to do production. So don't worry too much about it. Just set up a webcam, learn how to use OBS, worry about the fancy bells and whistles later on. You'll just learn. And another thing too, when you're starting off with these things, you're gonna fail. Sometimes.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Like accept that as a good thing, right? You learn.
Yeah, accept it. And the people that can get past their failures and learn from them are the ones that are going to succeed. And this goes back to saying everyone sees the end product and the big events and everything, but I've had a lot of failures along the way. They're very rough. Don't get me wrong. Like, I'm not going to tell you that you're going to feel great failing at something.
It's so wonderful I failed, right?
Yeah, but I will tell you that it gets easier. You learn how to deal with it better as you fail. The first failure is always going to be the worst.
Yep.
And just keep going on. No one has succeeded without failing a lot.
So we have I'm going to jump to this chat here because we have a question. I don't want to leave it off too long. So
Sure.
I'm going to push it to you, Chris. Do you think the esports of today's games will be around in 10 years or more, or will they simply be replaced? How do you see this transition happen when we look at things like League of Legends that's been around as long as it has, StarCraft 2, etc.?
So I believe that it's all cyclical. So the popular esport today will not be the popular one tomorrow. And it's just going to keep getting replaced by other games. So when I started out, the big esport was StarCraft. StarCraft 1 and Brood War was the biggest thing, and I played that nonstop. I would stay up to watch Boxer play, and unfortunately that game has faded away. StarCraft 2 obviously is not as successful, so RTS
There's still a little
bit
bit of a resurgence in Korea from what I hear.
Yeah, there's a bit of resurgence, but you got to admit that StarCraft isn't where it was 10 years ago.
Of course, no, I'm just saying we'll throw a little love to StarCraft community that they're doing a little something out there still.
Yeah, StarCraft will always be in my heart. But right now, it's very hard to organize events just because the popularity isn't there.
Yeah, for sure.
And then I witnessed the fall of StarCraft, which was pretty tough on me, and the rise of Counter-Strike 1.6. So that was back in the day when SK and 3D were around. I used to watch all those games when the CPL was around, actually, and they obviously had that huge scandal that destroyed them. But CSGO was really big, but I also watched that kind of take a back seat as well. That game faded away. And then I guess MMOs, not MMOs, sorry, MOBAs came to where they are today. But now also Counter-Strike is coming back. So you see what I mean when I say Counter-Strike faded away, it's coming back now. RTS was really strong, faded away. It's kind of making resurgence. I believe it'll be big one day again. I'm not sure when exactly.
Well, I'm gonna jump in because interestingly enough, there was an article that EG and Control wrote for us maybe 6-8 weeks ago, and it was literally titled is RTS a dying genre? And he explores this idea of could there be another successful RTS, especially as an esport? And it's an interesting question. Like, is that cyclical point you make? You're talking about a big time pro saying he's not sure, right?
Mhm. I don't know. I feel more positive. Maybe I know In Control's been around for a long time, so he's witnessed the same things that I have. But I strongly believe that RTS will make a comeback, and I believe MOBAs will take a back seat. I'm not sure when. Maybe 3, 4 years from now, maybe even sooner, it'll take a back seat. I believe CS:GO will keep rising. And it's going to be interesting to see how Overwatch does as an FPS, although I wouldn't classify it as something similar to Counter-Strike. It's a completely different thing altogether.
Yeah, I have this interesting thought. So I'm one of those people that I don't believe every game that gets hyped is really going to become an esport. And there's a lot of those hyped games. Heroes of the Storm was one, and you'll notice we don't have a Heroes of the Storm team, and it's nothing against the game. I have a hard time seeing it as a long-term big esport, because so far the community itself has not driven the growth. It's been purely Blizzard, Blizzard, Blizzard. There's been some attempts in the community, just hasn't happened, right?
Yeah.
It reminds me a lot of World of Tanks. Yeah, World of Tanks is moderately successful, but not for the amount of money they put in, right? World of Tanks is successful for, if that had come from grassroots, we'd be stoked about World of Tanks right now. But we all know that came from the developers putting an enormous amount of infrastructure underneath it. And that's awesome. But I look at Overwatch and I have the same questions where it looks like a cool game. I've played it for like literally like 5 minutes. I honestly have no idea if it's like less than that much. I just got beta. I'm not sure, right? And everyone assumes Blizzard's putting it out. Blizzard puts out so many esports titles, etc. I'm curious if we've hit this point where we're going to assume that everything coming out that's an exciting new game can therefore be an esport. And I don't know if that's always the case, just because it's an awesome game.
Yeah, that one's tough to judge. It'll be a successful game either way. I'm a huge Team Fortress fan. I used to be a big player, Team Fortress 1 when it used to be a Quake mod. So I believe it'll be a good esport, but it 100% will be a successful game.
Yeah, totally, totally. So shifting gears here for a second, I'm trying to keep us, I love to sidetrack, but I kind of make sure we go through the whole narrative today.
Sure.
If you were getting in the industry today, we talked about like some of the things you can do, right? Like finding some things that you like and trialing them outside the industry. And we talked about our theme of just do it. What kind of obstacles do you see for the new person? Because obviously they're theoretically a little bit easier on one side because there's more opportunity there was 5 years ago, but they're also theoretically harder because there's more people trying to get in, right? So give me some thoughts about what some of those obstacles you think people are going to face today.
The biggest obstacle I find is money. That is the hardest part for someone to enter into esports. It's less relevant today because, again, there's a lot of VC money coming in, a lot of teams are growing. But not too long ago, and still now, to get into esports, to get your foot in the door, you have to volunteer.
Right.
And it's not any of the organizations being greedy, it's just the reality of the scene and the industry. There's not a lot of money into it. Like my organization, we're grassroots. We can't really afford to pay a full staff. We rely a lot on volunteers. And for me, when I started out too, it was a huge financial risk. And even though I sold out the first event, I didn't make any money on it. It was just a test, so I actually lost money.
Right.
And I wouldn't have been able to be as free if I didn't save up money from the 10 years working in the toy industry. And I see that today too with other people who try to get in. They have to have a full-time job to support them. They have bills to pay. They have rent. It's hard for them to dive in 100% into esports unless they're paid full-time.
And the very few people that are paid full-time have already brought a skill in, so therefore they're probably established, maybe not in esports, but they're established. So
yeah, so that's the biggest obstacle right now. Yeah.
Well, you know what's interesting about that comment? So I always jump back to traditional entertainment, right? Because there's lots we can learn from it. It's already done a lot of things, especially theater, because theater's thousands of years old. But in theater, it's incredibly common to go, A, just do it, like you said, just put up an event, get some friends, let's do a show. We'll find a theater, we'll do it, right? But B, you're going to spend money. You're not just going to volunteer. You're going to spend money to do theater in the beginning because you're so passionate about it. You love it so much. You go, look, I'll put in a little bit, you put in a little bit. we'll get together, we'll do a show, it'll be a great time, and we'll work our way up to where we're actually getting paid a little bit, and then eventually maybe we'll make a living at this, you know. And I did it for 10 years in theater primarily, and a little bit of film and television, but in the beginning, I didn't make a dime in theater, and I spent way more than I took in. Not a dime, you know, and I still loved it. I was passionate, and that's why I did it. But what it accelerated me to is 5 years in, where I was making my full living. I didn't wait tables. I didn't have to work at a hotel. Like, I didn't do any of those traditional theater things you do on the side. I was making my full-time living in the industry, and that only happened because I was also 22, 23 years old. I could afford to do that. I, slept in a crappy mattress in a small room in New York City, and was able to scrape by. But if you're able to do those things, especially because esports, hell, you can live at home and do esports. You don't have to go anywhere most of the time. I have to agree with you that there's a little bit of you have to be willing to take a sacrifice most of the time, unless you bring a specific skill. You're a lawyer, you're in marketing, you're in social media, like you have very specific skill sets that the industry wants.
Yeah. So assuming that you don't have that skill set and you're still young and want to get into the industry, as you said, passion is what drives you to continue on. And
Yep.
that is passion comes into play when you are done a full work day or you're done studying for your exams and it's 2, 3 a.m. and that's when you start working on esports or whatever it is.
Yep.
And it will drive. And not only that, if you work on it and it fails, passion will help you go even further. So,
Yeah.
or help you go forward. So I've had a lot of rough nights. Like even editing for Scar was rough. Like where I couldn't come up with the idea, and I'd be in the office until 4 or 5 a.m. Perfecting everything, and then getting up the next morning, and then spending 5 hours working my event, and then after that work.
Yep.
You just have to keep going. So people see the finished product, but what they don't know is behind the scenes, it's just a ridiculous amount of work. So work
Yep.
ethic is very important.
You hit on that passion word and how that can drive you. So I'm gonna kind of jump back a couple years when I first started in the industry, before there was a Splyce, before there was a Follow Esports, which is a predecessor to Splyce, and I was working for some esports startups out there, and I had a full-time job. I was working in manufacturing, and I worked a lot of hours. It wasn't like I was in a director position, so I probably worked 55 hours a week, fortunately from home, and I traveled as well. But all of my esports stuff was done because I was passionate about it. I did it mostly late at night. So I'd get my
Yeah.
kids to bed, my wife would go to bed, and it'd be like 9:30, 10 o'clock, and I'd be like, okay, time to start working on esports. And I would work for the next 4 hours till 2 in the morning, and I'd sleep 4 or 5 hours, and I'd get up and go to my day job. And it wasn't because I had to do that. Like, I had a decent living and, everything, but I knew I wanted to do this, and I loved it, and that's what drove me. And I kind of always say to people that if you don't need to get into esports, like this burning need, then don't. It's the wrong industry. It
Yeah.
goes right back to theater, anything in entertainment. Unless there's a burning need, do something else. Because people see the glamorous side. They see Thorin, they see EG in Control, they see Paul Chaloner hosting, these major events. All these big things we're talking about where you go, whoa, I want to do that. And that looks exciting.
Yeah.
None of those guys got there without incredible amounts of work and digging through and making no money at points and having to deal with lots of problems. I guarantee you're not going to find anybody in the industry who, I shouldn't say anybody, you're going to find very select few who go, I came in, got my big break right away, and it's been smooth sailing ever since. Like, that's just not how it works. I wish more people got that out there. I see a comment in chat that's really interesting. It said the greatest scare to me of trying to work in the esports industry is not being able to compensate your employees for their hard-earned work. It sucks. And yeah, I have a really interesting kind of comment on that. Is that I have a number of people very early on, before we were able to get some funding, where we were looking at how do we work with these people and hold them accountable but not pay them. And so when it came down to it, I was like, look, I'm going to just give you like $100 a month or $200 a month because I want you to feel like I value your contribution. It won't be much, but I'll give you a little something. And early on, we were really able to do that for those core people who are now, most of them still here with us today, working full time. And I think that I agree with what you're saying, BSG, that that's a terrifying prospect, right? But that's entertainment. Like, look at all these movies that go bust, or a big Broadway show that opens and the next day closes, right? And people had their jobs all set on. It's like, sorry guys, we didn't sell enough tickets, and that's it. So it goes back to the comment of don't. This is not the industry for the lighthearted, right? You go manufacturing, engineering, be a doctor, something like that, right?
Yeah, do the 9 to 5 type of thing for
Yep.
esports. And you're right. That's the way, if you want to make it big too, is to work with an organization that you trust, that will bring you with them when they become really big. So I surround myself with people who started off as volunteers, who are paid volunteers now. And as we grow, I will continue to take care of them as they help me with my events. And I'll remember them. I'll remember everything that they do, everything that they helped me with during the really tough times or the times we had no money, that they will be the first to, I guess, have big roles within the organization. And yeah.
Well, I'll throw a story out as a plug to Jeff, who's we call the Code Wizard. So he's the developer who is behind all the nitty gritty at Splyce.gg, and I love working with the guy. But Jeff has been here since the beginning. We hired Jeff in January or February of 2014. He built the platform, the back end, working with Vinny, one of my co-founders. And there was a point where we had some initial money, and it was a very, very small sum. And at some point, we knew it was going to run out. We went to Jeff. We're like, look, I just want to let you know, you've been freelancing for us. You've been really good. We wanted to bring you on full time for a longer period because we had brought him on for maybe 2 months of pretty full time. We're like, we're just not going to be able to raise money. We're going to have to. I'm letting you know it's coming up, but as soon as we get the chance, we'll come back at you. And Jeff said, okay, I'm going to need to get other work to pay my bills and take care of my family, but I want to keep in touch. I really love this project. I'll keep working on it when I can, nights, weekends, kind of like I was saying. And he did that for a good, I'd say 6-week period or something. And then the second we were able to raise some money, it's kind of a joke at the company, is that Megan and Vinny, who are my co-founders, I didn't call them first. I called Jeff. And I was so excited to call Jeff and say, Jeff, I'm hiring you full time. I got the money, right? And that was a proud moment for me. Going back to BSG's comment, that I was able to say to somebody who'd been loyal to us and really worked hard and shown that this was what he wanted to do. And Jeff's been with us ever since, obviously, and our most tenured employee, and I expect to be with us for the very long term. So. Davis brings up an interesting point on the side here too, that a lot of these organizations do incentives other than money. I'm guessing, Chris, that you have a lot of those type of things that you're with your volunteers working at a convention.
Yeah, I mean, obviously getting their hotel and stuff at the convention, but that's a given. I mean, I like to treat my employees or volunteers to activities as well. For the last event we had special, we had a really nice dinner together as a group. I also invited everyone to axe throwing.
Axe throwing.
Yeah. So it's.
I want to go axe throwing.
Yeah, it's like bowling, or they call it's like darts, but with axes. So you just get an axe and you throw it, and we play in a tournament.
That
we played
is
special.
intense.
Yeah, I invited my whole team. We did a escape room too after that. So just activities here and there, and when we can, we pay them what we can. It all depends on the events and stuff, but. Yeah, stuff like that I find more fun though.
Yeah.
To go axe story with special was pretty cool. we have Dyrus coming out in May, and I'm not sure if he's too keen on that idea, but we'll see.
All right, Dyrus, if you're listening, we want to know if you like axe throwing, and if you don't, start thinking of activities because Chris needs to take you out, buddy.
Yeah, axe throwing is not a pastime in Toronto, but it's pretty interesting.
Well, when I first we got the League of Legends team, I actually went there. Our players are all Danish, so I went up to Copenhagen to meet them, and they were able to come down and normally you'd sit down and have dinner, and we did that kind of stuff and talk about the team. But I said to my manager at the time, I said, what can we do that's fun? I just want to get to know the guys. And he's like, oh, well, in Copenhagen we have this amusement park right downtown. It's this really old. It looks like from the movies. It's really crazy. It doesn't look like Six Flags, right? It looks very beautiful and very historic. I was like, all right, let's go there. It's called Tivoli. And we went there, and it was really cool. At the end, I had a player come to me and be like, all right, this is some next level bonding right here. Because, that means more than throwing them $50, right? To actually go out and spend some time getting to know each other and saying, look, I'm really invested in you being a part of this organization, and I really value you guys. So I agree that there's some cool stuff like that you can do. So. Yeah,
no, I definitely agree with that. It's a bonding experience, as you said, right? Sometimes it's different than just handing them, hey, here's $20, thanks for helping. it's definitely a big difference.
And chat, I'm going to just remind you, if you want to ask questions, now is probably a good time to start putting them up there. We'll get to them as we can. We've got about 15-20 minutes left here, so leave them in chat. We'll get to them. Shifting gear here, Chris, I like to touch a little bit on the industry as a whole right now. So, we've got a lot of major movement right now with things like, you mentioned VC teams, Immortals, Energy. We've got MTG buying up properties overseas with ESCA and ESL and DreamHack. MLG obviously just got bought by Blizzard Activision. The things are kind of nutty, if you will, in the last 4 or 5 months. Being a independent tournament organizer, where you're not going up against MLG, but in a way you do the same thing as MLG does. So you're a competitor with juggernauts like DreamHack and MLG. How do you balance that with your goals that obviously are not the same as reaching 1 million people on stream and stuff like that?
Well, for us, we're more about the local community of Toronto and Canada in general. We don't get a lot of events up here. So, for example, if you're competing at some of the bigger events, like the LCS or whatever, you're more of the pro players. We're reaching out more to the casual people. So, as I mentioned before, we have a lot of guests, such as Dyrus, Kriparian, those people. They just kind of want to meet them. So we're less focused on the competitive aspect of it. For example, last time we had them play Jeopardy on stream and stage.
That's awesome.
Millionaire, League of Legends edition, stuff like that. But I feel like competition, it's unavoidable, obviously. By the way, for people watching and who read about these acquisitions, this stuff is not uncommon in other industries. It happens everywhere. The bigger companies usually end up eating the smaller ones later on through mergers, acquisitions, whatever it is. So this is completely normal.
Yeah, I think people don't know how many companies get eaten up on a daily basis in Silicon Valley, where like Facebook, Google, Twitter, like they're acquiring small companies all the time,
Yeah, they happens all the time there in the toy industry that I experience. All the small ones are actually, well, even today, toy industry has been around forever, probably in the entertainment industry too, right? All the small ones get eaten up. So it's bound to happen. We're just going to keep doing what we're doing here and to grow our events in Toronto and Canada, because it's not really done here. As to what will happen in the future, I couldn't really tell you.
No, yeah, I mean, I get asked sometimes, what are your 1 year prospects or 5 year? I'm like, 5 year? We do in a month in esports what most industries do in 5 years. So you're asking me to make this like multi-year? Not a chance. I have no idea. So it's interesting you mentioned about the local, Chris, because I think that you and I have spoken offline about this idea that we're East Coasters. We're not always going to go to LA or San Francisco for a big event. We're not even going to always go to New York City, because that's pretty far and there aren't even that many events there. So obviously you're banking on this idea of localization, and it seems like you're having some results that people do want to attend events live. I'm going to speak for you. You tell me if you agree, is that you truly believe that people do want to get off their couches and go to an event, hang with other people, and not just watch on the stream.
Yeah, that's true. So the old stigma of gamers is that they like to stay at home in their basement, play video games, and that's it. But that is actually very far from the truth. When I hosted these events, gamers are actually the most social people around. You just have to put them in an environment that they're comfortable in. If you put them in a club with loud music and all this kind of stuff, obviously they're not going to feel comfortable.
You mean like if you put them in, I don't know, a bar playing Hearthstone for a regional qualifier with people walking around behind? Sorry, I couldn't help but take that jab.
Yeah, so it's like, if they're in a really uncomfortable environment, they're not going to enjoy it. But I find gamers to be super energetic, and that's what I first discovered at PAX. So
yeah, PAX is a great atmosphere for that. I totally agree. And by the way, for anyone that doesn't know, I was referencing the Blizzard qualifiers this weekend, which were kind of a mess out in Berlin. So that's another story for another day, though.
Yeah, but that's actually another good example of, I wouldn't say it was a failure. There were some rough bumps for them.
Oh yeah, I don't think it was a failure. It was a rough road though for people. So.
But it's the first time Blizzard is trying to do so many qualifiers in so many cities.
Yep.
And or not so many cities, depending on who you ask. But it's their first time doing it. They're going to have some criticisms. They're going to fix it. It's going to be better next time. America's coming up next week, which I'm running the one for Toronto. We're going to have hiccups again.
Oh, I didn't realize there was a Toronto one.
Yeah, we're actually like one of the only ones in the East Coast, which is really weird because when we hosted the...
well, there's a DC one too.
Yeah, there's a DC one, but
Okay.
we had people from like Jersey, New York, Ohio
Really?
to our event to qualify.
Wow.
So yeah, that's why it's really important. That's why if you're listening to this and you're in the East Coast, whatever city you're in, host an event. Go if you like Hearthstone, or if you don't like Hearthstone, learn how to play it. Just start out there because they definitely need more
What he's saying is
community
he does not work for
organizers.
Blizzard, even though he's endorsing the game.
I don't work for Blizzard at all, but host a fireside gathering or host any kind of event because we need more on the East Coast. So
Yeah.
if and I know New York, I'm not sure why New York didn't have one. I know that they have a big community there. I'm not sure why. But again, if you're in all the other cities in between, even if it's Buffalo or
Yep.
London, Ontario, wherever it is, host an
Yeah, like
event.
I think that the Smash community's modeled it perfectly, right? The Smash community has an event everywhere. You can go anywhere and go to a Smash event. So we're going to jump into some questions here, though, Chris. We got a few people
Sure.
asking. First one said, "Can you ask Chris what he sees in the future for Good Game?" That's a great question.
For Good Game Con?
Yeah.
Oh man. So
Look into your crystal ball and predict the future.
So if it's really hard because you've heard about how we've evolved in the past couple years. Um, I think there's two approaches. One is you go for the PAX type approach where we become like a gaming convention, which is not what we're trying to do. We're trying to be we're trying to cater more towards esports. So I
Okay.
think it's easy to say that, hey, more games, more money, better production. I think for the short term, that is something we want to do. And definitely expanding to other cities is something that I really want to do too. Again, I've hosted stuff in Hong Kong and Montreal. Montreal's a great city. They have a great event called Landing TS already. If you don't know about that, check it out. Montreal is Toronto was crazy when we hosted an event, but Montreal is on another level. Like when they get really excited, they pierce my ears with sound.
That's
Because
great.
there are that, and they were chanting. I don't know if you guys saw it at Worlds, but they were showing them on the Worlds broadcast for League. They were chanting "Ole, Ole, Ole." I had chills all over when that happened. They're really crazy. So yeah, definitely expanding to multiple cities and different games and just getting bigger. I think for the short terms, that's what it is.
Great.
In terms of changing the con goer experience, I'm working on a couple of things right now, but I don't really want to say it until it's done. You'll probably hear about it in May.
There you go, guys. You heard it here first. Big announcement coming. It's an acquisition of Riot Games, right? Is that what Good Game Con's doing next? You heard it here first.
Yes,
Riot,
and
get on that, Redditors. Get on it.
yeah, anyone want to loan me like $1 billion?
No, I don't think a billion would even do it. They made $1.5 billion in revenue last year, so good
Wow.
luck on that one. Next question. Someone asked off topic, does Splyce plan to form a Dota team? It's interesting. The reason I jumped to that question is your comment about do you have to keep adding more games and more games? I think Splyce is in a really good spot right now where we're in 6 games. For those that don't know, we have Call of Duty World League, North American Counter-Strike team, 2 top 25 Smash players, top North American World of Warcraft team, European LCS team, and 6 North American Hearthstone pros. And so I would rather improve the infrastructure and such around those players and teams to give them the best ability to compete than just continue to jump in new games, new games, new games. I think we're at that capacity right now where we can just continue to provide a lot of value to them. When we peak there, then we can look at new games, but we're nowhere near peaking yet. So someone else asked the question about how do you start an esports company, and that's a really great question because when I first got the idea of doing this, I wasn't starting a company, right? I don't know how you have from your end, Chris, if it's the same, but I'll tell from Splyce. I just went out and said, I really love Hearthstone. It's funny, we're both Hearthstone fans. And I was like, I can't find Hearthstone streams. So I'm going to make this website where people can find what's on to watch because it's my problem. And they say the best tools are usually solving your own problem. So that's what I did. And I wasn't forming a company, I was solving a problem. By doing that, all of a sudden I realized I needed help with design, I needed help with administrative, I needed help with getting the back end. And all of a sudden I had to get people to help me and ask a friend and my wife, and she's doing financial and my friend is doing the design. And all of a sudden I had a company. Okay, I wouldn't say that's always the case, but I bet if you look at a lot of the companies out there that have formed traditionally in esports, it's just been somebody wanted to do something, the just do it theme of today, and before you knew it, you needed some. Oh, we need to be incorporated because we need to accept a check. Oh, now that we're incorporated, we should have some lawyer, or so on and so forth. What about you, Chris?
Yeah, exact same thing. It was just a group of friends who kind of got together and created these events. And you're right, it's just solving problem after problem until you realize that you're growing into an organization. So
Yep.
yeah, you hit that spot on.
And I think that if you, they say this in the tech world. So I'm one of those people that we were a tech company that happened to be in esports first, right? So we formed a tech product. And so I watched every video, read every book about famous tech companies, how they were successful and how they failed. We talked about failures early on. I wanted to learn from their failures, and one thing I learned was that these whoa, I obviously didn't learn. I just lost my train of thought for a second there. Oh, I'm sorry. So the people that go out going, I want to form a company to do, are usually the ones that fail, as opposed to people that go, I have this problem, I want to solve it. How can I build a product that solves that problem? They weren't thinking about companies, they weren't thinking about an industry even. Sometimes it's rare where they'll go, a good example is DoorDash. DoorDash is a company that's a delivery service, and they went out saying, we want to help small businesses. Let's go find out what their problems are. So they did target an industry, but they still went out and said, let me find a problem they have and then figure out how to solve it. And they realized the problem was that they didn't want a delivery. They didn't want to do delivery. They said, "Why we didn't get into building our business to deliver. We got into our business to do our business," and that's how DoorDash came to be. I think that's true of esports as well. If you find something, you're like, there aren't enough tournaments in Toronto. I'm going to put tournaments in Toronto, as Chris did. You can't find what's on in esports. The second thing we did is we didn't think there was enough editorial coverage. So we added the editorial section to Splyce and got some really great writers, Thorin, EG Control, Lurpus, etc. It wasn't because I was like, I'm going to form an editorial company. It's because I said, I want to read more interesting content about people's opinions on the industry. And I think we've accomplished that.
Yeah, you're definitely right.
Let's see what else we got. There's some decent gaming communities here in New York, many meetups to watch esports events and tournaments. Sadly, not enough to attend events. I mean, Ice Distortion, I think a big part of that goes back to, I don't know if you were here when we talked about this early on, but there's going to be a huge opportunity in the coming years for more localization, which is what people like Chris and Good GameCon are doing, is saying, hey, I'm a local esports fan. I want to go to something here. I don't always want to go to, I went to New York City for MSG and League of Legends finals. That's a special trip. I don't want to do that every time. I'd like to, just like when a concert comes to town, pay for a ticket, go out for the night, come home at the end of the night. It's not a big investment. Maybe it cost me $30. And I think we're going to see more of that happen solely because of the demand will be there. Right now, the opportunities aren't there because, I shouldn't say the opportunities aren't there. There aren't enough companies meeting the opportunity. I don't know if you're finding the same, Chris.
Yeah, actually, I want to bring up one company that's doing a great job, Esports Arena in SoCal. They have a really great venue, and they work with all the local players there. They have, I can't remember, was it like do you know this place?
Oh yeah, very well. I have a player who lives locally. He goes down for all the Hearthstone events, and another one who's close by that goes for their Smash events.
Yeah, it's an awesome venue. They have like 100 computers there. It's 2 floors. They have a beautiful stage. They host a lot of events out there, and a lot of locals go and play tournaments. I feel that model could definitely expand to other cities. We have something that's similar in Toronto. It's not as big, but I feel that if they were to open up more places in other cities and to bring the gamers out, I think that could be very successful as well.
Yeah, I totally agree. And you look over at Europe, there are a lot of more of these, because PC cafes are a tradition over there more than they are in the US. You're starting to see esports bars or esports cafes, etc., open up where people go to watch things. There's the Meltdown Club that's being franchised. They're saying, I mean, you being from Canada, I think Canada is the first place they're going. Montreal and I'm trying to remember the other place, but North America, I just recently heard they're expanding because they already have like 25 clubs across Europe, and that'll certainly help to fill some of the niche, I think.
Yeah, it's kind of a weird situation. We have 3 gaming bars opening up, but they've said they've been opening up since last summer.
You can follow them on Twitter, check out the website, buy your tickets. I'm probably going. I'm local, so I'm excited to see it. For those of you that are new, we were on the front page of Twitch today, so Splyce.gg, great website for checking out. If you want to know what's on in esports, we list the most comprehensive listing of every event you can watch. No matter what game you want to watch, get push notifications to your phone or desktop. We also have a great editorial section. Lurpus from Counter-Strike, EG and Control from StarCraft. We just got Red Eye, the famous commentator who does the international. We've got Chris Chanman from Hearthstone and StarCraft who just started writing for us. Thorin from League of Legends, etc. So a lot of great content there. We also have pro teams across 6 major esports. So please check us out. Drop a follow, drop a like, all those things. Check out at Splyce Pro, at SplyceGG on Twitter. Check it out on Facebook. Check out the website. The whole shebang. Thank you, everyone. If you liked it, hope you're here next week.
Give me one more second.
Yeah, Chris, jump right back in.
Okay, so I just want to leave this last word with everyone that's watching.
Please
do.
That
we pounded this idea into the ground of just doing it and going out there and doing events, but we're both really serious when we say this. If you're sitting here like I was doing a few years ago, just I don't know.
Oh, I really want to do this.
Yeah, with a pizza box open up somewhere, a bunch of cans lying in one place, whatever you're, I don't know, not wearing whatever it is, whatever situation you're in, and you want to get involved in esports, just host an event. Seriously,
yeah.
Just pick up your phone right now, call a venue, call a bar, call a McDonald's, whatever it is, host something. Get your friends to go out there and just do it. We need more community events, and I really hope that some people listening today will grow to host more of these things. Whatever city you are, whatever country you're in, just give it a shot. And you don't know where it's going to lead you one day in the future.
And if you're broadcasting it, send it over to Splyce. We'll list it on our website. Try to get you some viewers. That's our goal, right? We're very synergistic in that way. So everyone, I want to thank my guest again today. Thank you, Chris, for being here. Thank you, Good GameCon chat. Appreciate the questions. That was wonderful today. Next week we'll be back with another guest. I haven't confirmed it yet, but I have a feeling it's going to be a good one from the person that I've talked to. We're 6 for 6 so far, according to chat, with good guests. So, Chris, you've met the criteria. Thanks, everyone. Have a great one. Thank you, Chris.